The day my son handed me that paper, he was wearing an iron button-down and smiling like he was doing me a favor. That was 16 months before Gloria laid 11 bank transactions on a conference table, and I watched his face go completely white. My name is Earl Whitfield. I'm 64 years old. I spent 31 years as a structural engineer for a county infrastructure firm in central Georgia, calculating load tolerances and stress points for bridges and overpasses. I retired 3 years ago. I live alone in the same house on Callaway Road where I raised my son, where my wife Dorothy and I had our morning coffee every day for 36 years, and where I still sit at the same kitchen table now, just with one less cup. Dorothy passed 2 years ago, ovarian cancer, 4 months from diagnosis to the end. She was the kind of woman who remembered every birthday in the extended family without writing it down, who drove 45 minutes in a rainstorm to bring a casserole to a sick coworker she barely knew outside the office, who kept a handwritten card for every grandchild milestone in a shoebox in the closet. She loved Philip, our son, the way only a mother can, and she loved Danny, our grandson, from the moment she first held him. Danny was 3 when she died. She spent the last weeks she had any real energy sitting on the back porch watching him chase fireflies in the yard, laughing every single time he caught one and held it up like he'd discovered gold. After she passed, I thought the hard part was going to be the silence in the house. I was wrong. The hard part turned out to be something I didn't see coming at all, and it came from the last direction I would have looked. It didn't start all at once. That's the thing nobody tells you about being taken advantage of by someone you love. It doesn't come at you like a wave. It comes like a slow drip. Slow enough that each individual drop seems reasonable. You only understand what happened when you look at the puddle. After Dorothy died, Philip started calling more. I thought that was grief. He started asking about my finances, my pension, my retirement accounts, what I was spending monthly on the house. I thought that was concern. When the water heater went out, he offered to handle the contractor. I let him. It seemed natural at the time. I was a 62-year-old man in a fog of grief, and my son was stepping up. That's what I thought was happening. I should back up. When Philip and his wife Norma bought their house in Marietta 4 years ago, I gave them $75,000. That was money Dorothy and I had saved over 20 years, money we'd talked about leaving for Philip and Danny eventually. We decided to give it early because they needed it, and because we wanted to see it do some good while we were still around to watch. I didn't attach conditions to it. I didn't ask for anything back. It was family money. They were family. What I didn't understand was how that $75,000 looked from where Philip was standing. To him, apparently, it wasn't a gift. It was a data point. It told him how much I had, how willing I was to give it, and how little I was likely to question things if they were framed the right way. 8 months after Dorothy passed, Philip sat me down at this same kitchen table and explained that I needed a financial power of attorney. Someone who could act on my behalf if something happened to me. He had the paperwork already printed. He said it was standard estate planning. He said Dorothy would have wanted me to have a plan in place. I was still in that fog. The kind of fog that doesn't lift all at once. It just thins out slowly over months, and you don't realize how thick it was until you can finally see clearly again. I signed the paper. I trusted my son. I didn't read every line the way I should have. That was my mistake. Not the only one, but the first one. The visits with Danny started changing around the same time. At first, it was just, give us 72 hours notice. We want to make sure his schedule is set. That seemed reasonable enough. Then it became twice a month, both days pre-scheduled, no flexibility for anything in between. Then there were Saturdays where I'd drive 40 minutes and Norma would meet me at the door and tell me it wasn't a great time. Danny had a play date, or he was tired, or they had something going on. I'd drive 40 minutes back home and sit in my kitchen and tell myself it was just a busy family with a young kid. I mentioned it to Philip once, carefully. He said Norma liked structure. He said Danny did better with a consistent routine. He said, I had to understand that things were different now that they had a child. I swallowed it. I kept calling ahead. I kept showing up on the approved days with a book or a puzzle, sitting on their sofa for 90 minutes while Danny showed me whatever he'd built with his Legos, and then driving home. The thing that finally broke through the fog wasn't the restricted visits. It was a phone call. Philip called on a Tuesday evening. His voice careful in that particular way that means someone has been rehearsing. He said he'd been doing some research. He said a place called Sunrise Living in Kennesaw had very nice independent living units. He said maybe I should think about whether Callaway Road was still the right fit for where I was in life. I sat at Dorothy's kitchen table for a long time after that call ended, and something in me went very, very still. I had a neighbor named Audrey Priest. Retired ICU nurse, lived 3 houses down, brought me a pot of chili the week after Dorothy's funeral and checked in on me every couple of weeks after that. She wasn't intrusive about it, just a knock on the door, a quick conversation on the porch, the kind of thing that reminds you the world still has decent people in it. About a year before the Sunrise Living phone call, Audrey had mentioned a lawyer. Her sister had gone through a difficult situation with a stepson, financial stuff, access to grandchildren, the whole thing, and she'd worked with a family law attorney in Atlanta named Clifford Baxter. Audrey said he was patient, thorough, and didn't raise his voice when things got complicated. She'd given me his card to be polite. I'd taken it the same way. The night after Philip's call, I went through the kitchen drawer where I keep takeout menus and spare batteries and old receipts. I found the card under a pizza coupon that had expired 2 years ago. I called Clifford Baxter the next morning at 8 a.m. His assistant put me through within 20 minutes. I spent 50 minutes on the phone explaining everything as clearly and calmly as I could. The $75,000, the power of attorney, the restricted visits, the Sunrise Living suggestion. Clifford listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said he needed me to do a few things before we talked again. Save every text and email from Philip related to money or visits. Write down every restricted or canceled visit with the date, and call my accountant. I asked him why the accountant specifically. He said a power of attorney given under grief, without proper oversight documentation, can be used in ways the person who signed it never intended. And he wanted to understand exactly what financial activity had occurred under mine before we went any further. My accountant was Gloria Fenn. I'd used her for 18 years. She was meticulous in the way a good engineer is meticulous. Nothing slipped past her, and she kept files the way a library keeps books. Organized, cross-referenced, permanent. I called her that same afternoon, explained the situation, and asked her to pull everything. What Gloria found took me a few minutes to fully absorb. The $75,000 gift to Philip and Norma had gone toward the Marietta house. That part was clean. But the power of attorney had been used to authorize transactions I had never approved and never knew about. Over 16 months, $28,000 had moved out of a joint household account I'd kept active for shared expenses into a separate account in Philip's name alone. The transfers were staggered, $1,800 one month, $2,600 at the next, $1,400 after that, small enough to avoid triggering any automatic flags. 11 transactions total. I sat in Gloria's office for a long time after she walked me through the printouts. I thought about the ironed button down. I thought about the word precaution. I thought about Dorothy sitting on the back porch watching Danny catch fireflies and the $75,000 we'd saved over 20 years to give our family something solid to stand on. I didn't say much. Gloria gave me a glass of water and let me sit. Then I told her I needed her to build a complete picture. Every transaction, every date, every dollar, clean enough to hand to a lawyer. She said she'd have it in 2 weeks. Clifford and Gloria worked in parallel after that. I didn't tell Philip anything. I kept calling ahead for my scheduled visits. I kept showing up on approved Saturdays with a book or a small toy for Danny, parking on the street, sitting on their sofa for the allotted 90 minutes, and driving home. I smiled when Norma offered me coffee. I asked Philip about his work. I did not let a single thing show on my face. One of those Saturdays, about 3 weeks into the investigation, Danny climbed up on the sofa next to me while we were doing a puzzle and put his head against my arm the way little kids do when they're comfortable and not thinking about it. He didn't say anything. He just leaned there, picking up puzzle pieces and handing them to me. One at a time, I kept my eyes on the puzzle. He asked me once during that stretch why I looked different. I told him I didn't know what he meant. He said, "Your face looks like when something's hard." I looked at him, 5 years old, gap where a baby tooth had just come out, completely serious. I told him my face always looked like that when I was concentrating on a puzzle. He thought about it for a second and then said, "Okay," and went back to sorting pieces by color. I drove home that afternoon and sat at the kitchen table and thought about Dorothy. I thought about how she would have laughed at that "your face looks like when something's hard," how she would have repeated it at dinner and still been smiling about it a week later. I thought about how she spent her last good weeks watching that boy chase fireflies. I thought about 36 years of morning coffee at that table and $75,000 saved 1 year at a time and a power of attorney signed in grief. And I thought about Philip's voice on the phone, careful, rehearsed, sunrise living. I went to bed that night the same way I'd been going to bed for 3 weeks, quietly, without saying a word to anyone who didn't need to know. In the 7th week, Clifford called me and said we had enough. He had prepared a full legal demand package. Revocation of the power of attorney. A formal accounting request for every transaction executed under it, a repayment claim for the $28,000. And documentation of my rights under Georgia family law, which allows grandparents to petition for visitation when access is being unreasonably withheld. Gloria had prepared a financial summary that was clean enough to hand to a judge. Every transaction, every date, every dollar, no room for a different interpretation. Then Philip called me on a Thursday afternoon. "Dad, I've got some paperwork for the trust setup. Can we meet this week?" "I think it's time to move this forward." I told him I agreed completely. I suggested we meet at Clifford Baxter's office. I said I'd been working with a lawyer on some estate planning of my own and thought it would be useful to have legal counsel in the room to explain the language properly. Philip said that sounded fine. He said he'd bring the documents. He came in wearing the button down again. I was already seated when Philip walked into Clifford's office. Clifford was at the head of the table. Gloria was to his left with a manila folder in front of her. I was across from the empty chair. The room was quiet and clean and smelled like coffee someone had made an hour ago. Philip stopped just inside the door. He looked at Clifford. He looked at Gloria. Then he looked at me. "Dad," he said it like a question. "Sit down, son," I said. He sat. He put his own folder on the table, the trust paperwork he'd brought for me to sign. He straightened it once, out of habit, then left it alone. He hadn't expected 2 other people in the room. I could see him recalibrating. Clifford introduced himself and Gloria. He was calm and unhurried about it, the way a man gets calm when he has done this enough times to know exactly how it goes. He explained that we were here to review some documentation related to my financial accounts and my estate planning. He said Philip was welcome to have his own attorney present if he preferred, and that we could reschedule if he wanted to make that call. Philip said that wouldn't be necessary. Clifford nodded and slid the folder across the table. Philip opened it. He read the first page. His eyes moved in that particular way. Eyes move when they're reading something, and the brain is working hard to find a different interpretation than the one that's right there on the paper. He turned to the second page. Then the third. Gloria's financial summary. Every transaction listed by date, amount, and destination account. 11 entries. $28,000 total. Clean as a tax return, he set the folder down. He looked at me, and I watched his face do something I hadn't seen it do since he was a teenager caught in a lie. That specific combination of calculation and collapse, the moment when a person realizes the story they've been running is over and they don't have a replacement ready. "Dad, I can explain. Read the rest of it," I said. He read the rest of it. The room was quiet for a while after that. Outside, somewhere down the hall, a phone rang twice and stopped. Philip's hand was resting flat on top of the folder. He wasn't looking at me anymore. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. The careful, rehearsed quality was gone. What was left underneath it was something younger and smaller. He said the money had been for savings, for the family. He said he had been planning to tell me. He said things had gotten complicated with the business and he'd needed a short-term solution and he'd meant to put it back. Clifford let him finish. Then he went through the legal situation, point by point. The power of attorney had been used outside the scope I had authorized. The transactions were documentable and dated. The repayment demand was specific. The grandparent access filing was ready to submit to the court if an agreement couldn't be reached today. He wasn't unkind about it. He just laid it out the way you lay out a set of plans on a job site. Here's what exists. Here's what needs to happen. Here's the timeline. Philip sat with all of it for a minute. His phone buzzed on the table. Norma's name on the screen. He turned it face down. I waited. I want to be clear about how I felt sitting in that room. I wasn't angry. The anger had come and gone weeks earlier. The night after Gloria's meeting, when I sat at the kitchen table for 2 hours and let myself feel the full weight of what my son had done. By the time I walked into Clifford's office that morning, the anger was spent. What I had instead was something steadier, the way you feel when you've done the calculations 3 times and you know the numbers are right. I looked at Philip across that table, my son, 38 years old, wearing his iron shirt, staring at a financial summary of what he'd taken from the father who'd given him $75,000 and signed a paper because he trusted him, and I didn't feel rage. I felt a kind of sorrow, the kind that doesn't make you want to fight, it just makes you tired and very clear. I said, I'm not here to take you to court. I'm not here to blow up your life. I'm here because that's my money. Those are my accounts, and Danny is my grandson. All three of those things are going to be put back the way they should be. That's the only thing we're deciding today. Philip nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't try another explanation. He signed the repayment agreement before we left the building. $28,000 paid back over 18 months, structured and documented, with Gloria as the point of contact on the schedule. The power of attorney was formally revoked on the spot. Clifford had the paperwork ready. Gloria was appointed to oversee any future financial planning independently. The trust documents Philip had brought for me to sign, the ones that would have given him discretionary control over my primary retirement account, went into Clifford's shredder. The grandparent access issue was resolved with a handshake agreement. Unrestricted Saturday visits, no advance notice requirement, no scheduled windows. Philip and I didn't say much to each other after the signing. We stood in the parking lot for a minute. He said he was sorry. I told him I heard him. We didn't hug. He got in his car and I got in mine. I drove back to Callaway Road. I made a pot of coffee. I sat at the kitchen table where Dorothy and I used to sit every morning, and I stayed there for a long time without turning on the TV or the radio. The house was quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet than it had been for the past 2 years. It wasn't the quiet of something missing. It was just quiet. The first Saturday after the meeting, I drove to Philip and Norma's house without calling ahead. I knocked at 9 in the morning. Danny answered the door himself, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up on one side. He looked up at me and said, "Grandpa Earl." The way a 5-year-old says something when they are completely uncomplicatedly happy, no performance in it. Just the pure thing. I took him to the wildlife area near Milledgeville. It's a stretch of creek and hardwood forest that Dorothy and I used to walk on weekends when Philip was young. Then again, after he left home, just the two of us, mostly quiet, watching the water. There are herons out there, big gray birds that stand so still in the shallows you almost miss them. Dorothy loved them. She called them patient fishermen and said there was something we could all learn from a bird that understood how to wait. Danny didn't know any of that yet. He just knew the creek had rocks worth turning over and possibly something large and interesting living underneath them. We spent 3 hours. He took his shoes off before I could say anything about it, rolled his jeans up to his knees and waded in up to his shins looking for what he was convinced were monster fish. We didn't find any. He wasn't discouraged. He told me we just needed to come back earlier next time before the monsters went to sleep. I told him that was probably right. On the drive home, he fell asleep in the car seat with his cheek against the window and his mouth slightly open, still holding a smooth gray rock he'd picked up from the creek bed. I drove the whole way back without the radio on, just the road and the trees and the sound of him breathing. I have a photo on the windowsill above my kitchen sink. It's Dorothy holding Danny in the hospital room the week before she died, when she still had enough energy to sit up and hold him in both arms. She is looking down at him with an expression I don't have a word for. It's not quite joy and it's not quite grief. It's something that sits right between them. A few weeks after the Milledgeville trip, I added a second photo next to it. Danny at the creek, shoes off, jeans rolled up, both hands reaching under a flat rock, completely focused. The look on his face is the same look Dorothy has in her photo. That same thing that sits between joy and something deeper than joy. She would have lost her mind over that picture. She would have printed a dozen copies. She would have mailed one to her sister in Savannah and her college roommate in Charlotte, and probably the woman she used to carpool with 20 years ago. She would have put it on the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a peach and pointed it out to every person who walked through the kitchen for the next 6 months. I like to think she saw that day at the creek. I like to think she sees all of it. Philip and I are still working through things. That's the honest answer. The repayment is on schedule. Gloria confirms that every month. We talk occasionally, carefully, the way two people talk when they've broken something, and are still figuring out whether it can be repaired and what it's going to look like when it is. I don't know yet. Some things take longer than others. I'm not in a hurry. I spent 31 years calculating exactly how much weight a structure could carry before the stress became permanent damage. I know the difference between a crack that heals and one that doesn't. I'm still measuring. Danny doesn't know any of this. He knows Grandpa Earl picks him up on Saturdays and takes him to look for monster fish. That's enough for now. That's more than enough. I'm telling you all of this because something in this story might sound familiar to you. Maybe you gave money to your kids when they needed it. No paperwork, no conditions, because that's what you do for family. Maybe someone offered to help manage your finances after a loss, a spouse, a job, your health, and it felt like care at the time, so you let them. Maybe you've noticed the visits getting shorter, the phone calls going to voicemail. A suggestion floated casually that maybe a smaller place would suit you better now. I'm not telling you to suspect your children. I'm telling you to protect yourself the way you'd protect anyone you love. A financial power of attorney is a legal document with real teeth. If you sign one during grief or pressure or a moment when you're not thinking straight, it can be used in ways you never intended and may not notice until the damage is already done. Document gifts to family members. Keep your own accountant. Keep your own attorney. Not because you don't trust people, because documentation protects everyone, including the relationship, if things ever go sideways. And if you are a grandparent being kept at arm's length, visits that keep shrinking, access that requires permission slips and advance notice and conditions, know that in Georgia, and in most states, you have legal standing. Grandparent visitation rights are real. Clifford Baxter was the first person to tell me that. I'm passing it along because maybe no one has told you yet. I didn't raise my voice once through any of this. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't blow anything up. I just stopped being the man my son was counting on me to be, too tired, too trusting, too deep in grief to look at the numbers. I became something else instead. The same man I always was at work, patient, precise, and very good at reading a structure for exactly where it was going to fail. Dorothy always said that was my best quality. Turns out she was right about that too.